So let's start. So good afternoon and good morning and good evening to everyone. Welcome to webinar on libraries and the Global Digital Compact that is organized by Electronic Information for Libraries, or EIFL in short. EIFL is a non-for-profit organization working internationally to enable access to knowledge through libraries in developing and transition economy countries for education, research, livelihood development, and community development. EIFL has a small team working mostly remotely from different countries. And here we have 3 of our team members, Ugne, Edvaldas, and me. So I'm Ramuna Petuchovaite. I'm the manager for Public Library Innovation Program at EIFL. I will be moderator today. And as I told before, just the webinar, we have a good number of people registered for this webinar. And it looks like we'll have a truly international audience interested in all aspects of public access in libraries, from setting infrastructure to impact assessment to building capacities of librarians and users, and also evidence on impact of public access in libraries. I hope we will be able to meet most of those expectations today. I'm glad I'm glad to introduce panelists today. So we have James Beronda, Head of Technical Services from Uganda Communications Commission. We have Alex Ombongi, Head of IT at Kenya National Library Services. Unfortunately, Maria Lisa Olgan from Colombia, Director of Foundation Bibliotech, could not join us because she got cold and lost her voice. But I hope you will be able to read a case study from Colombia in the report that we will share shortly. We also have Dr. Stuart Hamilton, Head of Libraries Development for the Local Government Management Agency in Ireland, and Ugne Lipeikaite, EIFL Public Library Innovation Program Impact Manager. The questions that we are going to cover today in discussion are that will guide discussion is what roles do libraries play in national broadband ecosystems? What are the key lessons and challenges in developing public access in libraries? How does public access change library services? Who are the users of public access in libraries? How has the use of public access in libraries changed over years, and how do people use public access in libraries? And of course, what are the outcomes of public access in libraries and how to measure them. Now, some words on webinar process. So each panelist will have up to 10 minutes for her or his contribution. That also includes a few minutes for immediate questions from the audience. I encourage the audience to put your questions in the chat for each expert during their presentations. Also, you can put more general questions for all panelists if you are interested to hear, their responses and comments on something. Because after the first round of contributions, we will have some time for discussion and answering those questions. So first, about the context for this seminar and why we are doing it. The Global Digital Compact is an initiative proposed by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. And it's a common agenda that started, or developing a common agenda that started in back in 2020, and also includes a long period of consultation from all over the world. And I read on internet that there were about 1 million contributions to this this document. And in May 2023, this year, the UN Secretary has issued the policy brief on a global digital compact, an open, free, and secure digital future for all. It is an input to preparation for the Summit of the Future in 2024, next year, where it is expected to reach a joint agreement on solutions for better tomorrow, strengthening global governance for both present and future generations. This document begins with a bold statement that challenges that we face now can be addressed only through stronger international cooperation. And this document has several objectives out of 8 in total that explicitly mention public access. And those are digital connectivity and capacity building, where it says that partners in this digital cooperation commit extending the connectivity for schools to medical facilities and relevant public institutions, also coordinating actions, subsidies, and incentives for digital, technical, and vocational training and public access facilities, in particular for women and girls and people living in rural areas. Another objective is digital cooperation to accelerate progress on sustainable development goals. And it says that partners will make targeted investments in digital public infrastructure and services and advance global knowledge and share the best practices on digital public goods. Libraries are not mentioned in explicitly in those in this document, but definitely we assume that they are part of the public access facilities or those relevant institutions that provide access to communities, and especially those underserved ones and those that do not have alternative access to internet. So in connection with this, actually, we thought that it's time to start talking what experience that libraries have all over the world in providing public access could be used to build the better digital future for all. And this webinar actually is the first attempt to connect our experience and showcase good practices and also start dialogue about what and how it could be used in digital cooperation in the future. So I'd like to refer to two documents developed by IFLA, the International Federation of Library Association and Institutions and EIFL teams, under the Dynamic Coalition on Public Access in Libraries. This is an informal network established by IFLA and EIFL over a decade ago at the Internet Governance Forum. And it is a way to create a space for discussion on the good practices, networks, and infrastructures offered by libraries to connect and empower communities in digital world. So over the last few years, we, together with IFLA team, we have developed those two documents, two reports on libraries and national broadband plans and policies and impacts of public access to computers and internet in libraries that really accumulates a lot of experience and a lot of information about how libraries contribute to digital development or digital transformation. So for the context, I'd like to give a brief overview of the first report, which is which examines national broadband plans and policies in 32 countries, and provides a list of roles envisioned for libraries in those countries, and also policy measures that creates favorable conditions for libraries to contribute to digital inclusion and other policy areas. Also, this report includes 5 case studies on how public access to computers and internet was developed in different countries and where funding came, what policies were supporting this this process, and also who implemented projects and so on and so on. So those 5 case studies are from Colombia, Kenya, Romania, and Philippines. And that's why I said Maria Elisa, though she's not here, but if you visit the first report on the role of libraries in national broadband plans and policies, you can get some information about how this process was organized in Colombia and what were success factors. So on the roles of libraries in national broadband policies, what we found that many of those policies seek to engage libraries as providers of public access to the internet, also technologies or computers, also digital learning opportunities and related services, and especially focuses on underserved users depending on the countries. There might be rural communities or senior citizens or disabled people or people that do not have lower incomes or lower education. Also, we found that To empower libraries for these roles, national policies outline such interventions as improvement of library connectivity infrastructure and ICT equipment, helping libraries bear internet connectivity and related costs, and also staff training. The third finding or conclusion from this analysis of 32 national policies is that intervention to set up public access in libraries can be implemented or mostly implemented through dedicated government-led projects with the help of universal access and service funds through public-private partnerships and other measures. And as I mentioned, there are also case studies, 5 case studies, and here are main findings or conclusions from the case studies. That policy measures to set up or expand public access in libraries do support meaningful access and digital inclusion, especially for user groups who are more likely to be offline. Public access in libraries makes facilitate introduction of more ICT-based services and initiatives that help meet local needs, and more it means besides just access, providing physical access to ICT. And also libraries' experience across the 5 case studies offer insight into good practices in public access infrastructure development projects, such as, for example, projects should start with mapping available infrastructure and connectivity needs, introduce systematic collection of impact data, build in training for librarians, and so on. Details you can really look into those reports. I just revisit one case study because I was part, before joining EIFL, I was working at the Ministry of Culture of Lithuania and was part of the development team of public library, public access infrastructure in libraries in Lithuania across the country. And here how library facilities look like in Lithuania, computer facilities or public access facilities. There are about 1,200 public libraries of different sizes in Lithuania. Many of them are very small, just one room where books and computers and reading rooms and all other activities happen. At the moment, or since I think 2014, all public libraries in Lithuania provide public access to ICT and the internet. And as a network, they are real power in connecting those unconnected and providing skills to those who don't have basic digital skills, because over 1 year, there are almost 250,000 people that come to public libraries for digital skill training and consultations. And those trainings and consultations are regular and happening in urban libraries, but also in small libraries that, for example, might have just a few computers for their community use. Also, as all public libraries in Lithuania has computers and for public access, for many years already, libraries has become a key partner in all national initiatives and campaigns aimed at digital inclusion and capacity building. And they participate and bring people to such campaigns as Safer Internet Week, Seniors Online Week, All Digital Week, and so on and so on. And again, through those campaigns, they reach also thousands of people. And this is what libraries could do in connecting those unconnected and also bringing digital opportunities to people and communities. Of course, the infrastructure development process did not happen. It was not one night thing. It happened, over a long period, almost 2 decades probably, because we have really big network of public libraries. But in general, it was led first by, let's say, innovative and forward-looking libraries, which were fundraising to have established first computer classes. And then it's because of advocacy efforts of library community, it was included in the policies of information society development and got state funding. So it started to roll out as state-supported project. But it was quite slow until I think 2008 or so, when we got an offer from Global Libraries Program of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to provide country grant for connecting remaining libraries in Lithuania. And since then, as I said, this is a public infrastructure that is used for many functions and many campaigns promoting government e-services, providing online learning, and so on and so on. So with this, I'd like to get back to our panelists, and the first one in my list is James Beronda, head of Technical Services, Uganda Communications Commission, which is a government agency that collaborates with the National Library of Uganda on the projects to connect public and community libraries to the internet. James, please, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Raymond. I hope I pronounced your name right. And I send greetings to everyone listening and seeing me here. My name, like being introduced, my name is James Beronda, and I'm the head technical services for the Uganda Communications Universal Service and Access Fund. It's a mouthful, but we recently rebranded. We were originally called the Rural Communications Development Fund. We've been in existence for more than 20 years. And what we've been doing majorly is taking ICTs to unserved and underserved areas of Uganda. Initially, I think the framers of the fund and why they called it rural, because I think they realized that at that point in market development, most of the services lacking were in the rural areas. But as we've progressed on, we've discovered that even some urban areas have unserved populations. So we moved away from the word rural communications to be more universal, and that's why we are now referred to as Uganda Communications Universal Service and Access Fund. So regardless of geographic location, you can still be unserved or unserved. Regarding, we classify this project you're doing under our public access. The original public access was around voice, and actually we did a lot of public payphones. Those of you from Uganda here could probably testify this. Of course, the biggest issue then was telephony. And so we did a lot of public payphones. So, but as we progress, then of course, the landscape changed. People now are yearning for more information and more about the internet. And so we've been doing this whole concept of public access. And to us, public access has been across so many areas, and one of them are schools. We've done quite a lot in schools because we also classify that as public access as well. We have community centers, and more recently, like three or 4 years ago, when we were approached by our good people from the Uganda National Libraries. I remember when they did approach, I was the person here, and I listened to them very carefully, and I thought they ticked all the boxes to advance most of the things you've actually been talking about. I wouldn't want to even repeat what you've actually said, because you are really spot on what the contribution of National Library is in the whole broadband ecosystem. So I was glad, and we moved on. And I'm happy to say since then we've quite progressed. I think we're now moving to about 30 libraries. This year alone, we're adding another additional 30 libraries, which will bring them to about 60. And in a new strategic plan I have for the fund, by the way, maybe I didn't tell you this, but UCSAF, or this unit, is actually a universal service fund. And I think I saw from part of your slides where you were saying that universal service funds should actually be heavily involved or should support things like public libraries. And indeed, we are a universal service fund for Uganda, but administered within the Uganda Communications Commission. Now, back to the libraries. For our next 5-year strategic plan, we also plan to cover almost about 100 libraries. We might have very few national libraries or public libraries, but now with the interaction of the people at the Uganda National Libraries, we discovered that there are also libraries that are actually called community libraries. These are private, but communities. And for us, those are the pockets we really want to target, because that's where we believe our unserved populations are. The elderly, PWDs, those kind of cohorts can exist in those communities. So what better way to use libraries to reach them out in form of public access? So over the 5 years, we plan to cover just about 100. So what we've been doing also is we don't stop at just providing, and we're not really providing very huge support. We're giving just basic computers, which we're using on a thin client computing, but it's still good enough. We provide a printer, and more recently, we're connecting now them to the internet, and we should provide a subsidy for just about 2 years. Why we're happy with EIFL, because we were in the process of thinking, now that we've supplied these libraries computers, what else do we do? And I think the good angel came within you, that we started seeing you being part of these national libraries providing digital literacy trainings, because we do digital literacy trainings in all our other projects. We have digital literacy trainings for PWDs, we have digital literacy training for small medium enterprises, women, but we think you've complemented our project so much by providing, like I think I saw some videos in Mbale and other spaces where you're conducting digital literacy trainings for communities. And to us, that is very good, and it really fits within our strategic plan of creating more partnerships and cooperations on trying to bridge that whole digital divide. So I must say, I've become very interested in this whole partnership, and I know Eugene, when she was here, she briefed me more about what you guys are doing, and I was kind of encouraged. For us, public libraries kind of act as centers to enhance the whole usage of ICTs within those underserved areas, because in some areas we supply tablets home to homes, but realize we can't get to every home. So if we put an access center within the community where the youth can actually come in and access, we think that is one way of enabling access to communities. There is a lot I could share, but maybe for now, let me stop there so that maybe other colleagues can speak. Yeah, you can ask any questions as we go along.
Yes, thank you, James. I see just one comment in the question and answers that from Esther Kiazike from Kavempe Youth Center, who says, I am happy to hear that community libraries in Uganda are being recognized for support. Thank you, UCC. I wonder if there are other questions from the audience. And I think it's really a good point by James that, you know, in countries that emerging economy countries where public library networks are not so dense and community libraries really provides an alternative network that could become providers of public access to wider community. And this is a way to go because to my experience, seeing a lot of examples in different countries how public access facilities are introduced and services provided, libraries usually are better and more sustainable institutions for such services. And public access to information, knowledge, training of and programs of digital skills training, I think organically are integrated in library offer to communities, and much better than other institutions like post offices or specific, I don't know, public access points that are created just for this purpose. I don't know if there are more questions. Just a minute, I will check in the chat. Or yeah, and Maria from IFLA says, thank you, James. I was wondering if you have any particular strategies to locate and target those community libraries that you mentioned. So what's your strategy? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And like I said, we at the Commission, we're not probably in position to know where these libraries are. And that's why I'm saying we work very closely with the Uganda National Libraries, because I'm also made to understand that actually the Uganda National Libraries sort of coordinates all the public libraries, including all those community libraries. So we actually depend on them, one, to identify where these libraries are and which libraries are ready. Not all of them are ready to receive ICT equipment. So we depend on them for the analysis and selection, and then for us, we come in with our support. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have another question for you. Motseki William Mofoka asks James, who sponsored the project? I think you mentioned it, but maybe you can clarify for people to understand.
I didn't know who sponsors the project.
The project, yeah. Where money comes.
Oh, where money comes from. Okay, maybe I did mention that. Yes, we are a fund where we take ICTs to unserved and underserved communities of the country. This money, we get it from a levy, which is imposed on the telecom companies or license providers, not necessarily telecom companies. So we charge 2% of their gross annual revenue. So that money, we use it to advance ICTs or to take ICTs in these unserved locations. These include increasing coverage, network coverage, increasing internet usage. Public library is one of them. We do digital literacy campaigns as well. We support PWD initiatives and so many other things. Yeah, but the money comes from a levy we get from the telecom companies.
Yeah, and such funds exist in many countries. You just need to find out, probably through your ministries responsible for infrastructure development, communications, depending on how they called. Thank you, James, very much. And we might get more questions for you. And now from Uganda, we are moving to Kenya, neighboring country, and we have Alex Ombongi.
Ombongi.
Ombongi. Oh, sorry. He is head of ICT unit at the National Library of Kenya National Library Services, and he has been working with the network of public libraries for many years and help to introduce public access computers and internet to the whole network of Kenya public libraries. So, so Alex, please, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ramon and participants. Welcome to this webinar session. Kenya National Library is a parastatal, just a government institution, which resides within the Ministry of Sports, Youth and Culture. And currently within Kenya National Library Service, we have 3 National Library Service. And as of 30th of July, we seeded 61 public libraries to the counties and regions as per the Constitution, and ensuring that they are actually taken care of at that local level and to spur accessibility. It's my thinking as I was noting that bad libraries build collections and the good ones build services, but the great ones build communities, which spur movement, and it's more of a communal activity. And it's with this mindset that within the KNLS, we come up with innovative strategies to actually guide us within this, for us to be a one-stop shop. And one-stop shop in the sense that we want to pride ourselves to be the hub whereby guys can come and have information. And also, as we seek this, there is need for us to adopt the emerging trends and technology. Definitely, this will lead us to be the futuristic library. And how do we do that? We partner. We come together with like-minded and unlike-minded people who have something to offer, something to add to what we don't have. And more so, it reaches that communal goal of a digital impact and to become a digital library within. Within the whole country, before we had 61 branches, and we partnered with one major partner who's a government institution, whose also mandate is ensuring that there is information flow within the country. And this particular partner was Communication Authority. And during this process, the whole project had a bottom-down approach, whereby we had all the community libraries, provincial, which we call provincial and national public libraries. We did a thorough requirement access, whereby most of them never had any infrastructure at all, basically in terms of technological change. And during this time, this spurred us to come up with ability to ensure that we have just remote connection between one computer and another, that was cabling, install Wi-Fi access points for people who have mobile devices, because in Kenya currently the technology in terms of mobile phone, everybody is really has a mobile phone. And also for the normal reporting, you had printer, scanner, movement of information. We also had registration of members. Within a library, we run a library management system, which is Koha, which is an open source software. And we needed our teams, our patrons to have membership so that it's easy to circulate the materials within the library. Within the e-resources, we had 10 computers each for this community library all the way to the public library, which was over 560 computers. And we had remote community libraries which did not have power. But Kenya is really blessed with sunlight. So most of these particular branches, we installed solar power, which would run all these equipment in terms of the ICT. Then we had that bit of capacity, internet within these particular branches. The first 5 years within the partner, that was Communication Authority, we had that opportunity to be funded within that for that capacity. But currently, the 5 years elapsed long time ago, and in our sustainability plan as KNLS, we have been supporting all these branches with now at least 15 to 20 Mbps per branch, depending on how big the library is, whereby you find like the public libraries currently are running on 50 MB to 100 MB, where we are within the town center. So with this infrastructure, which is a backbone, you find that it attracts other like-minded partners to come on board and enjoy this particular roadmap, which has been already placed in place, and even attract other partners to see where do they extend these services. So this done, we have seen like really so many partners come on board to one, now provide that library service to the remote areas which are not accessible. And these particular programs, which have been running now for over five years, are training programs where we have TOTs being trained, and then they go now to the remote places and actually now have digital skills impacted. Entrepreneurship skills also are very key, and more so for persons with disabilities, the children. We have programs now tailor-made, because within the library we have sections which now have different equipments put within them. And these equipments range from Kio kits, which are a box, which is like a brick with all the laptops charged, and then you take them to a school, and then they have a session, a library session, which is an online session, and you find most of the content is already within that particular device. We also have tablets, which are already within partnerships which we have. And these tablets are used by all the ages, depending, mostly the adults have their own tablets and children have their own tablets due to segregation and parental controls, which within the content of this. We also have new partners like Ramone on IFO and the team, who came up with another angle of giving us that capacity building platform to our staff. And this staff had that capability to actually undertake now advocacy program, come up with new methods of training, like design thinking, whereby you have to really think out of the box within the scope of the patrons which you manage. Within this infrastructure improvement within KNLS, it is for sure the truth that we are not able to serve everybody by giving him that portable device. So within this infrastructure, with access points all over our library, which are managed, and we use more of a ticketing way of giving you a ticket for you to use within your device, you're able to bring your own devices, have a sitting space, and you use your own, use our internet and the resources, and the power is available. So this has really, one, growth given us a big impact on content access. And now it has spurred us to actually now look into more content needs within this particular environment. Other partners, because it's our prayer that you always have as many partners as you can get, because you can't do alone, you can't move alone. You really need somebody to assist you on one end as you move this. So we have the US Embassy, which equips, which has already equipped some of our branches with the physical library upgrade and equipment which range from Chromebooks, tablets, and all that. And then also the current project which we have finalized with our parent ministry, which has also a fund, like my colleague from Uganda has indicated, which already now has ensured that within the library scenario, we have a data center which is supposed to manage all these libraries which are coming up and which are already in existing, and ensuring that we manage resources now from a data center view, because the world currently is going cloud, right? So that's one of those items. And then also we have established a digitization lab, whereby it's within this need of accessing information from both the remote areas that they are really young to actually access these rare materials, manuscripts, maps, which is content which is developed locally, or that these books are within our library. So this has really made us change the way we think, and also improve our services within. Lastly, we have, due to this, it has made us now start thinking about the library of the future, and how do we move in terms of the infrastructure, because currently everybody is accessing through a wireless, cloud-based systems and all that. So what do we do as KNLS is to also partner with more people with like minds, and have content services, ensure that these particular patrons who are our community have access to information, which is e-government services. We also have applications which are so many around Kenya now, like farming. We have M-Farm, we have the government services, which is over 5,000 services, which we have already picked and harnessed within our KNLS infrastructure to avail through these platforms, or this infrastructure which we really have come up with. There's with all these good things, it doesn't mean that everything that the devices have come up to end of life. We'll need some of them to upgrade. You find the PC which used a desktop. Currently, guys are doing computer tablets and all that. So there's need to actually come up with also ways of accessing this, having more funding to upgrade these particular teams. And then capacity building. As a library, we give information. So you find that most of our patrons are pushing us towards information which is more certified, in a training-based kind of environment, or us to come up with a platform which gives us now more information. And then also virtual learning is in demand, whereby due to COVID, people loved to stay at home and read from home. So we have to come up with that particular platforms to ensure that we harness that. And then electronic resources which are online, our publishers need have that, milestone where they have to actually generate more e-content and resources for us to harness and distribute. And as usual, when so many equipments are within a network, you really need a lot of bandwidth. So the bandwidth needs to be either doubled at most for us to actually work. Where are we now? We have now come up with an online platform for access to e-resources. And these resources are accessed within all our libraries, and it's online content developed locally, and we ensure that this is moved to at a global spectrum. And for the team, KNLS has been able to achieve so much in the past, but it can achieve much more in the future. And the board is firm to a believer to these words. Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. So meaning that for community libraries, partner. Get somebody to hold your hand, move you to those greater heights that you would actually now be able to give more services to our communities at large. Thank you so much. And I'll leave you with for you to test our system, which is actually now available for use by everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ramon.
Thank you very much, Alex. We have some questions, not necessary about the public access. So Dominic is interested in your partnership with World Reader, but probably I will connect you with him via email and you can explain it later. But Cam from Afli is asking, I see that KNLS talked about the need for additional e-resources. She's asking if you considered or explored open license resources.
Thank you, Ramon. Within our platform, we have actually mapped out open resources, but you find that there's a market mix whereby some of them love a certain type of resources which you don't have. So sometimes you have to partner with a certain publisher who's developing that. Like now, kids. Resources on Kiswahili, which is one of the languages used in Kenya, you would find that now those books are not so many for kids to actually ensure that their languages are up and running and that kind of skill. So we are open to have as much resources because we are a library, and honestly, we need to give more resources as much. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So we are running out of the time, as always. So Stuart, I'd like to introduce you. So Dr. Stuart Hamilton is the head of libraries development for Local Government Management Agency in Ireland. And he is a national advisor on public libraries and leads the development and implementation of national public library strategy across 31 local authorities in Ireland. You probably know Stuart from his previous works with EIFL, and now he's back to EIFL, to governing board. But also, Stuart is one of the co-creators of Dynamic Coalition for Public Access in Libraries in IGF. So I'm happy to give a floor to you, and please, I'm looking forward to hear your contribution about public access.
Thanks for inviting me along, and it's great to see some familiar names in the list of people who are here. I'm Stuart Hamilton. I am indeed the head of libraries development at the Local Government Management Agency in Ireland. I'm based in Dublin. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to Irish public libraries, which I'm thinking may not be super familiar to everyone on the call. So we're a relatively small country in Ireland. We've got just over 5 million people in the latest census. We have 330 public libraries, and they're all connected to the internet. In Ireland, there's been a sort of prolonged engagement between the government parts dealing with internet and broadband and the libraries. And around about 2018, there was a wholesale government and local government investment into new hardware and software and internet access for the library system. So for the past 5 years, we've had a pretty good quality mix of PCs, laptops, tablets across all of our libraries, and then a kind of mix of speeds connecting them to the internet. So Ireland's a country that has some very rural areas where you might find not so fast internet, and some decent urban places in Dublin, in Limerick, in Cork, where you're going to get much faster speeds. Over the years, the staff have become increasingly more digitally enabled, and that's as a result of a coordinated strategy to upskill the workforce over many years. And of course, many colleagues on the call will know just how accelerated that became during the COVID period, when library staff in Ireland, much like library staff elsewhere, had to switch to digital provision of services. And we've really seen an explosion in our staff's digital skills as a result. The libraries are definitely seen as key providers of public access to the internet and skills training in the country. So we have in some ways fought some battles here to get libraries recognized as key partners, and we've been successful. So this means, as I said, that since 2018, we had an initial big investment in the most recent round of hardware and software for libraries, but we've also been able every year since then to see investment from the government in things like tablets, maker spaces, digital and audio recording studios, and sensory equipment. And one of my jobs is to try to find money wherever we can down the back of whatever sofa to try to keep that investment going in the public libraries. And it's helped because there is an increasing recognition that the libraries can deliver government policy and policy objectives. So, for example, we're explicitly mentioned in the National Implementation Plan for the SDGs. We're explicitly mentioned in the country's digital inclusion roadmap, and we are working at the moment as part of a cross-government working group on a national disinformation strategy, so part of that media literacy piece. And this is something which has been a very positive experience for us, and it means that we're constantly making and maintaining the contacts with people that we can leverage to ensure continued investment in the sector. Now, Ramona, you asked for a number of sort of questions to be considered when sort of looking at our presentations. And what are the key lessons learned and challenges faced? Well, I suspect that what we have here in Ireland is similar to what many people on the call have, believe it or not, despite our position in sort of Western Europe, which is that the big challenge for us is ensuring that we have up-to-date equipment. Up-to-date equipment that is maintained, that has the necessary software upgrades, that the hardware doesn't go out of date, that we have adequate IT support in the libraries, and that these are just not pieces of equipment that are gathering dust and sort of becoming obsolete. I think that's a challenge for libraries all around the world. It means you're constantly going back to the funding well to try to get more money, to try to upskill people. And then you do run into sort of the specifics of local government public access provision. Is the library responsible for IT support, or is the municipality responsible for IT support? So you're constantly managing relationships in this space as well. How has public access changed over the years in Ireland? Again, I suspect we'll see some similarities elsewhere. We now have far more people bringing their own devices into the building than we would have done even 4 or 5 years ago. So we have to have that high-speed internet connectivity that can support multiple users on their phones, their tablets, their laptops at any one time. And then parallel to that, other changes would be that we've been able to introduce more and more advanced technology as the years have gone, along the lines of the makerspace kits that I mentioned earlier on, and sort of digital audio recording. How does all of this change the library services? Well, I pull out sort of three areas in particular, and the first one is the space itself. So part of my job is to advise on any new library buildings that are being constructed in the country. So one of the first things I'm doing when I'm looking through these plans is, how are you going to accommodate your public access space? And even that job has changed in the last 2 or 3 years, because when reviewing those applications 3 years ago, I'd be looking at static PCs, how many static PCs we need. Now I'm thinking, how much room do we need for laptops and tablets? Because that's the direction of travel that we're going in. And then, you know, the second area where it's changed is the skills that the staff need. So again, particularly after COVID, what do staff need to be able to deliver for hardware, software support, but also media and information literacy training, disinformation training? How are you actually tackling that in your staff? And then the third area is the services. You know, what more can we actually offer now that we've got all of this technology? And obviously there's the basics, which we can continue and we can go deeper on with regards to skills training. But, you know, there's other things you can do, particularly the faster internet connections that you have. And I'll talk just a little bit more about some of that in a second. Who are the users of public access in libraries? Everybody. So you know, we do obviously have big cohorts of students and people looking for work and that sort of thing, but everybody across society uses our computers. And they do that for personal reasons. They do that for research and study. They do it for business and employment. They're looking for health information. Now, I'm just going to finish, mindful of time, because we on Monday launched a new National Public Library strategy. And I'm going to put the link for interested people in the chat in a moment. And that's a 5-year strategy. It's called The Library is the Place. And basically, there's a large number of targets that we intend to fulfill over the next 5 years, with a specific strategic objective around the digital offer of libraries. So we intend to create a national gigabit libraries network where you will find a kind of flagship lighthouse library in every one of our municipalities or provinces to begin with, that will have gigabit connection speeds and really, really super fast broadband for additional services. And then we intend to build a cohort of staff around those super fast services that can basically be used to train staff in the rest of the country in more advanced services. You know, we think this is a really positive thing on the hardware side, but we're also rolling out a new national training program called Skills for Life, which is all about focusing on helping people live their lives with the key digital elements that we all need to survive. So we're looking at financial literacy training courses. How do you do your online banking? Health and wellness. We're also looking at green sustainability and climate literacy, which is a big thing in the rest of our strategy. And then I was at the UN earlier this week for the high-level political forum, and we have a specific focus within Skills for Life on media and information literacy, and probably disinformation too. So we will be using the new strategy to sort of add elements to our public access offer, which we think will be highly relevant for the next 5 years. So look, I'm going to put that into the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a bit of a quick presentation, a bit of a short whistle stop, but I do think there's a lot of things in Ireland that are really positive, but I suspect that we have them in common with lots of people on the call.
Thank you, Stuart. I think you just answered the question that we had from Dominic from Zambia, asking about the future trends in public access and ICT in libraries and how libraries could prepare for them. Also, Dominic asked about impact or measure of effectiveness and impact of public access ICT on overall services and community well-being. So I don't know if you have any inputs on that, how public libraries in Ireland measure effectiveness on well-being.
it's funny to hear that, with Ugna on the call and Ramuna yourself, you've been working with Impact for such a long time. We've actually, and I think it was maybe Alex who mentioned, or possibly, I think it was Alex who mentioned design thinking earlier on. Our new strategy has a specific focus on impact and evaluation. We know it's time to really shift at a national level to helping the local authorities take on something around the impact of our services. So we're already working a little bit with EIFL on trying to build people's capacity to do that. I think there are things, we at this point in sort of public access conversation, and particularly with the legacy of global libraries, we don't need to reinvent the wheel on impact. There's a lot of stuff out there that we can be using to look at our services. So we'll be seeking to learn from sort of what's gone on in the past rather than developing entirely new frameworks. I think the key thing is to just ensure that our staff understand what impact evaluation is and how to carry it out. So we'll be extending that well beyond the public access programs. But the things that spring to mind in the ICT sense are people achieving the results that they're expecting to get when they engage with public access? Are they getting the job information that they need? Are they getting the health information that they need? And that's how you measure the impact in some areas, I think.
Thank you. I really wanted to hear your points of view on this. And of course, next on our panel is Ugne Lipeikaite, Dr. Ugne Lipeikaite. She holds a PhD in Communication and Information from Vilnius University, and actually she did PhD on impact of public access, or measurement of impact of public access in libraries. And at EIFL, Ugne is Public Library Innovation Program Impact Manager, and she will talk or share our experience about the methodologies and also findings of impact and outcomes of public access in libraries. So Ugne, the floor is yours. Please reveal this.
Thank you. Thank you. I was smiling when I saw this question. Dominic, thank you for asking, because it is exactly what I am planning to talk about. Ramuna mentioned my PhD, but that's been 20 years ago, so definitely I will not be talking about these results, but I will be talking about much more recent studies. So let me just share my screen. I hope my presentation will come up on your screens, and I hope you can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I will start. So Ramuna already introduced to you the work that we've done with EIFL over the last few years. So we had two main stages, and Ramuna talked about first of them, which was a review of national broadband plans and policies in various countries to see the role that libraries are playing in those policies. But my presentation will be focused on the second stage, which was done over the last 2 years. And this stage focused on the overview of evidence of various studies. We actually revised around 30 studies, and they are from all different regions and different countries, to summarize what evidence of impact we see in those studies, and at the same time, how to evaluate those impacts, because we are very mindful that those public access initiatives are continuing in many places. People are still designing those projects. They are also measuring impact. So we thought that such resource can be very useful for them to take a look and get inspiration and get ideas how to measure those impacts. As you will be watching my presentation, you will be seeing very beautiful photos from our recent project in Uganda. I see many colleagues from Uganda here, so enjoy it. But the study itself is not specifically focused on Africa. We really looked at different regions. The questions that I'm planning to address are the ones that Ramuna highlighted in the beginning. So who is using public access, how this use has changed over the years, how people are using access, and what are the outcomes that arise from this use. And lastly, how can we evaluate economic value of public access? And in general, what are the methodologies to evaluate the impacts and the outcomes of public access in libraries? So without further waiting, I will start with the first question. So who are the users of public access? We looked into studies done over the last 10 years, and especially earlier studies show that when the public access is recently established, first of all, it attracts young people. So it attracts basically the audience below 25 years old. Most of them come from low and middle income families, but not from the poorest actually families. And the same for education, secondary or tertiary education. And another thing that we noticed is that for many of those people, public access in libraries is the only place to access the internet. Now, when the years pass by and the connectivity, the personal connectivity is growing, these people, we see a little bit shift from the young people who, with time, purchase usually the private devices. And there is a shift towards more disadvantaged communities. So if you think that public access is only relevant in developing countries, it's not true. We have evidence from US, from Canada, from UK. Stuart was talking about Ireland as well, that public access remains relevant, especially for vulnerable communities. So older people, migrants, people from low income, and so on, are the ones that benefit most. And the last myth that I want to bust is that, why public access is needed when people are getting home access. So actually, people continue using public access in libraries even when they get access at home for various reasons. For example, for getting help from staff, for using other library resources, other library devices such as printers and other machines, or just want to be in the public space, like similar to the co-working spaces. My next question is that maybe you are curious how the public access has changed, how the use of public access has changed over years. So I wanted to play a little game with you on the chat, but I see that we are running out of time, so I will just reveal the result. So we can see that several tendencies. In the places where public access in libraries is well equipped and the connectivity bandwidth is relevant, the use of access is stable or it is growing. However, at the same time, if there are challenges with maintenance of equipment is getting old, and if the internet speed is not up to date, then we see some decline in the use of public access. And lastly, the point that was correctly made by Stuart is about enormous rise of the importance of Wi-Fi in libraries, because really so many people are coming with personal devices, laptops, mobile phones, and really the use of Wi-Fi grows enormously. What do people do in libraries? Again, I'm tracing it back to what Stuart said. People come for all sorts of reasons, but still we can highlight few key areas where people really benefit from public access. First of them is related to learning and education. So everything related to information for studies, for studying online courses, tutorials, videos. This is a very, very big area where public access really makes a big contribution. And in the study, in the report, we have cases from Kenya, from Canada, from Nepal, showing how people use public access for learning purposes. Another big area is job seeking. Job seeking just by submitting CVs and looking for job ads and so on, but also using public access to learn new skills that would improve people's employability. And again, we have case studies from Kenya, from Namibia, from India, and from Canada, showcasing how public access contributes to job seeking. Another third area that I would like to highlight is contribution to e-government services. So really many people come to libraries to use e-government services. It can be independent use by them just sitting on the computer, but also in many, many cases, librarians play a big role to show how to access those e-government services and to help else users, are less experienced and need some help while using those e-government services. And I also want to mention that those vulnerable communities that I mentioned in the beginning are the ones that benefit most from this help by staff. This is the key slide and key message that we want to send out is about the outcomes of public access in libraries. And really all those studies that we revised, they all show positive impact of public access to communities. And key areas where this impact is strongest is first of all digital literacy. Digital literacy was a topic which was seen across, I would say, all studies that we included. And geographically also, it goes from South Asia to New York. And we have evidence that public access is contributing to development of digital skills, as well as confidence to use computers. Again, another big area is about job seeking. So we have examples from Namibia and from Canada, how people use public access to actually get jobs. Quite big percentage of people who come for job seeking to libraries, they actually manage to get job. Another area is also related to job, which is just before improvement of work-related performance. So people in libraries learn new skills, and these new skills help them to be more successful at their job. Another area is about learning and education again, but here I am talking about outcomes. So the emphasis is that public internet access in libraries helps people to improve their academic results and even pass their exams. We have a very nice example from Ghana about that. And the last one that I wanted to highlight is about social cohesion. It is a little bit more difficult to measure, but we have a very nice example from Canada, how public access users are becoming more active socially in their communities. And the last piece of evidence that I want to introduce is about economic value of public access in libraries. So in the studies that we looked at, in most cases, public access in libraries is provided for free or at very affordable fee, subsidized fee. So it is a bit hard to assess economic value, but still there are some studies that look into economic value, and we included 3 of them. So they are from Spain, from Latvia, and the most recent one is from Colombia. It's from last year. And all those 3 studies show that public access in libraries bring very significant savings for library users, as well as other positive financial benefits. And in those studies, they wanted to establish cost-benefit ratio for public access in libraries, and it ranges from 1 to 3. So from $1 invested into public access, you get an economic value of $3, to 1 to 33 in Colombia. So Colombian study obtained a result that $1 invested actually brings you $33. I know that maybe many of you are not so big fans of methodologies like I am, but still I wanted to highlight this piece as well. So one part of the report is about evidence, showing the evidence. The second part of the report is showing about methodologies, and in more simple ways, how these studies went about evaluation of public access. So, we are talking about 30 studies. So of course, methodologies are many and they are very diverse, but I can highlight few categories. First category is looking into physical access to computers and internet in libraries. So this is more of a supply side. What's been offered in libraries in terms of public access. And these methodologies include public access in inventories, surveys and interviews with managers and operators of public access service and interviews of public access managers and staff. So these methods allow you to collect data, what is available, what are the locations of public access, what infrastructure is there, how many computers they provide, what is the traffic of users to those public access computers, and so on. This kind of information. Through interviews, of course, you can collect more in-depth data. So what are the challenges that staff faces, how people are using, how they observe the impact, and so on. Another area of methods, or another cloud of methods, is focused on demand side. So who is using those public access computers and how they're using it. And it is basically gathered through user surveys and through focus groups and interviews with public access users. So we see it done almost in every study of public access. User study, I would say, is user surveys, maybe the key element of those studies. And the outcomes of public access are usually measured in relation to some domains, such as digital inclusion, education, communication, culture, health, and so on. Now, the third cloud, the third group of methods, they are looking into public access in libraries from broader perspective. So they are looking from the general society. So what is the demand in the general society for public access? And this is done through national representative surveys, and they can answer questions, for instance, what percentage of society is using public access? And another big advantage of such studies is that they also include non-users, and you can ask questions, for instance, why they are not using public access in libraries. So this is also a very useful piece of information. Last group is those economic value studies, and I separated them into a separate group because their methodology is quite specific and quite different from all the rest. So there are two main methods used. One is market pricing analysis, where basically public access in libraries is compared to public access services in other commercial venues like internet cafes. And comparing those two, they come up with ratio of cost benefit. And another method that is widely used is called contingent valuation. And this is basically a user survey when they are asked how much they would be willing to pay for public access in library if that would have been paid service. Both of these methods have the disadvantages. So usually studies combine those two, and then they come up with more reliable evidence. So I will stop here. I just want to say two things. First, if you are planning to do any public access study for your libraries or for any other venue, please look into these reports before so that you don't start from the blank page. And second, for all studies, we included links to those studies, but we also included examples of instruments used in those studies. So for instance, if you need to do public access user survey, you can go into the report and you can find examples of such surveys, including all questions that were asked. So it is a very useful resource if you are planning something similar. And with that, I stop here and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Shubna. I can see comments in the chat that there are very good insights and people are happy with what you shared. We are actually at the end of our dedicated time, but just one question that I saw was posted during Stuart's presentation, and it is about staff training. Ugna, I know that you were part of our capacity building initiative and also were responsible for building curriculum for capacity building for African countries. So maybe you can share a little bit, what content or what subjects were covered for the staff and maybe why.
Yeah, I can comment on that. First of all, I want to say that I just shared in the chat Oh no, I shared it personally to Ramona, so she will probably reshare to you. So I shared the link to my presentation if you want to have it. And to answer Ramona's question, yes, capacity building is essential part of success of public access studies, public access in libraries. Many understand public access as putting computers and connecting internet, but actually it does not lead to any good result without capacity building of staff. And another thing is that capacity building of staff also is quite complex because it cannot be limited to ICT itself. People may know how to use ICT, but they may not know how to help others to do it. So our capacity building programs really include a strong component of just training and facilitation skills and some tips. How do you train women? How do you train illiterate library users? How do you train children when it comes to ICT? So these components are also very important and should be considered. But very briefly, library staff training in all areas is so essential to the success of such initiatives.
Okay, thank you. There are a lot of compliments, Ugne, for your presentation, and I'm glad. Please look at the presentation that Ugne shared, or I shared actually, in the chat, and also check out the report itself, because as Ugne said, there are really links to methodologies that could be replicated or could be adapted for any impact assessment exercise on local level or regional or national level. You just save time, and you don't need to really work with or hire expensive experts in serving community. So we are at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'd like just to close it with just several recommendations and conclusions. I think libraries and library community at large need to be part of multi-stakeholder cooperation in digital era for digital inclusion and connectivity at all levels, international, national, regional, local, and it's also responsibility of the library field as well to seek those connections with the government and other partners. Second, I think it's really important to look into universal service and access funds in terms of developing on national level public access infrastructure in the whole network of libraries. And when all libraries are connected, there is really a huge input to digital transformations in the country. Also, I think if the projects are made or planned, there is very important that those projects from the beginning include assessment of library facilities and community needs, also data collection measures, and also their selection of relevant local resources that people need. And finally, I think we need to think about aligning digitization planning of schools and other public institutions, specialized public institutions and local libraries, to make sure that there is a shared public access facility when in library, where some institutions might be waiting, public access technology and connectivity for years. And thank you very much for being with us. If you have any questions, please write to the chat. We still keep a few minutes this Zoom space open, and we might also respond to your questions via email if you share. Thank you very much and good luck.